Hello. So my name is Briana MacWilliam, if you don't know me, and I am an author, educator, reiki practitioner, and licensed creative arts therapist. And I have been practicing in the field for over 12 years now. And so for today, I just wanted to do a live stream here to talk about some of the comments I've been seeing on the feed. Particularly, there have been lots of stories about pain, feelings of not knowing how to deal with a breakup, wondering what's going on in my relationship and how do I fix it, and how do I deal with these terrible feelings that keep coming up, rejection, confusion, feeling desperate to figure out how do I make things better. And so in this video, I really want to talk about 4 healing emotions that you have to process in order to really let go and fully welcome love into your life. And I'm going to be discussing these things primarily in the context of a breakup. However, I do feel that sometimes these feelings follow us into current relationships because we haven't really processed them from our past relationships. And so they can still be impacting you now, even if you are still in a relationship. And so those feelings are anger, sadness, fear, and grief. So I'd like you to watch this video, and as you're watching it, feel free to make comments here, and I'll try to address questions at the end of my little spiel here. But basically, I would like to talk about these feelings based on the premise that in order to grieve the loss of something, the loss of a loved one in particular, you have to really allow yourself to feel the negative feelings associated with loss. And that is what allows you to transform them. Okay. Now, there are any number of things that we try to do to avoid feeling those bad feelings, right? So we look for short-term escapes more often than not. We avoid looking at the bad things to cling to the good things so that we remain attached and we can cling to that love feeling for as long as we can. We also do things like denial, right? We deny things that are going bad. We justify our partner's behavior, or we justify why we're staying in it. We rationalize or we start to blame ourselves, right? And I'm going to talk more about the coping mechanisms that we use and the tools that we use to try to avoid these painful feelings that we don't want to feel. But for now, I want to focus on why you should allow yourself to feel them, okay? So partly why we don't allow ourselves to feel them is because we know on some level that if we allow ourselves to go through these 4 feelings, we will release the attachment. And because attachment is a biopsychosocial spiritual connection, it's a physical addiction to our partner. Because we know that if we allow ourselves to feel these feelings, that feeling is going to go away. We may lose the attachment. We cling even tighter and we say, no, I'm not going to feel those feelings because I don't want to lose this, right? It's kind of like the addiction talking. So it's kind of interesting that sometimes we allow ourselves to feel, let's say, 1 or 2, maybe even 3 of these emotions, but not all 4, right? Or we just get so wrapped up in them that we don't actually process them. So you may think that, no, I'm feeling all these 4 feelings, but you're just immersed, you're submerged in them, right? You're not giving any context to them. And what I mean by that is that we need to look at these within a particular framework that allows you to actually process the feelings, even if you are having them. And that means to look at them with growing consciousness and to ascribe some kind of meaning to them rather than just letting them play on repeat like a record stuck, right? Like a record scratching over and over and over again. So as we dive into these 4 emotions, I really want you to keep in mind that the framework is super important. And I'd like us to call it like a healing framework. Okay, a healing attitude. And this is really important because sometimes simply talking about your feelings without a framework actually makes them worse. Eckhart Tolle calls it feeding the pain body, but that your pain actually it's like an organism that lives inside of you. And if you talk about it without some kind of framework and acknowledgement and with the goal of increasing consciousness around these things in an effort to move through and process them, you only feed it. You're just feeding the monster, right? And even if we just share it, even in talk therapy, if our listeners just agree with whatever we're experiencing, we end up feeling depressed and even more drained, right? And a book I've actually been reading recently is called Mars and Venus Starting Over by John Gray, the same person who wrote Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. Kind of a controversial author, but if you can get past some of the things you don't agree with, he's got some good things to say. And he tends to believe that talking alone isn't enough to heal our hearts either. And sometimes getting it out can bring a sense of temporary relief, but there's no real lasting healing unless you've got this kind of healing attitude or framework around it. So getting angry or complaining, it's just not going to be enough unless you're also looking for some level of forgiveness around it. Feeling hurt and sad just gives you a headache if you don't try to give a deeper understanding and acceptance of what has happened. Exploring your fears, worries, and doubts, they only increase your insecurities if you're not also balancing it with some sense of gratitude for the contrast that you've experienced as a result of these things. So delving into shame and embarrassment or grief, it only increases your feelings of inadequacy and unworthiness unless you're also learning how to forgive yourself in that process. Okay? So by holding this framework, this healing attitude, it's going to give you time to explore your feelings and enrich them with intention, okay? And that is the intention to find forgiveness, to increase your conscious awareness, to express gratitude, and foster a sense of trust in the universe and in yourself again. Now, I'm not saying that you have to forgive people who've traumatized you. I'm not saying that you have to forgive the misbehaviors of people in your life. What I am saying is that you have to forgive yourself for stepping into something that now you feel like was harmful for you. Because oftentimes it's not the forgiving of the perpetrator that is going to help you. It's the forgiving of yourself. Okay? This is all about stepping into your own power again. So I'd like to set an intention for today, and we're going to start with just the most obvious thing, which is, why are you watching this video? What about the title caught your eye, right? And if you are watching this, there's probably something resonant in your soul seeking a feeling of relief from the acknowledgement and the processing of these 4 feelings that we are going to talk about. Okay. So in this moment, you might be thinking, yes, I'm watching this video because I'm looking for a solution to my problem. I want to find out how I can stop feeling this way. I want to find out how I can make my partner come back to me, or how I can fix this relationship, or how I can fix myself. And as we continue to talk about these things, I would like you, just for the length of this video, to try to suspend that kind of intention, okay, and embrace a new one. And this is the one that I'd like you to embrace simply for the length of this video. I am here because I am a lighted being, and I enjoy the feeling of being in full alignment with my most loving, receptive, and generous self. Lately, I have struggled to find that sense of alignment, and I am opening my field to receive what I may need to acknowledge in order to settle into that alignment again. Now, this may sound like fixing your problem, but I'll have you know it's actually quite different. I want you to suspend judgment in this moment, any notion that there's something wrong with you or with anyone else. And from that place of non-delineation, we can invite these 4 feelings that we have to process. So now that we've set the framework, let's get into it. So the first thing I want to talk about is anger. So feeling anger really breaks us free of indifference, and it reconnects us with our passion for life. It releases us from our attachments to our past wants and begin to feel new wants and desires. So instead of, I want my partner's love, the need becomes, I want love. You see the generalization there? As you remove the specifics from the situation, you are allowing yourself to step into a vibration and an alignment with your source energy and your ultimate desire without distortions or contrast. So to feel as if you want love is not needy. It is not an impediment to spiritual harmony. Source does not want you to be free of desire. Source wants you to be in alignment with your desire and open and receptive to receiving it in all its forms. But the problem is that we are often in the right place at the right time, but we're just not willing to receive it in our current state of perception. We can't acknowledge it in whatever form it has arrived. So the key is not to get stuck in anger. So if someone is not able to feel sadness or fear or grief, or they won't allow themselves to feel those things, then it's easy to get stuck in anger, because anger can be like this blanket feeling that's much more comfortable than the prickly kind of vulnerable feelings beneath it, right? And so it may look like someone becoming increasingly demanding, defensive, or indifferent in subsequent relationships. And so as soon as you begin to feel increasing love and intimacy, all those unresolved feelings of sadness and grief and fear now become activated, and they may surface to challenge you in new relationships with that old baggage, and all of a sudden you become angry, right? So if you don't allow yourself to feel anger now in the moment where it's warranted and allows you to process the feelings underneath it, then you get stuck in it, right? Now, if someone's not able to feel the sadness or the fear or the grief, it's easy to get stuck in that angry feeling, okay? All right, now let's talk about sadness. Now, feeling sadness allows us to open up to love again. And as a result of sadness, we're able to surrender our denial and accept the loss. So instead of, I expect my partner's love, our need becomes, I expect to be loved, right? And so sadness allows us to emotionally explore what did not happen that we wanted to have happen. And unless we give ourselves permission to be sad, we cannot adjust our expectations to what is now possible. Okay, so feeling sadness reconnects us to our ability to love and to enjoy what we do have. And so while anger gradually renews our passion for life, sadness opens our hearts to feel the sweetness of love again. It's essentially a process of acceptance. If we wallow in the sadness, however, we're not able to tap into that anger, and it's easy to get stuck in that place. And that leads us to more of a sense of victimization, right? We also become terrified of the power of our own suppressed rage, which has been broiling and growing beneath layers of repression and denial, completely unacknowledged, untamed, and unorganized. And so if you cannot allow for some of that anger to be titrated and released, it will consistently be turned in on the self, right? Turned in on the self, and that turns into depression and self-harming attitudes and behaviors and anxiety. Okay. Now let's talk about fear. So fear allows us to explore what could happen that we do not want to have happen. And that connects us to our vulnerability. So it provides an ability for us to discern what we need and can depend on now. All right. So as a result of fear, we can adapt to what is available instead of yearning for what is no longer available. So instead of, I need my partner's love and support, the need becomes, I need to be loved and supported. Okay. These are things you're learning about yourself as you allow these feelings to move through you. Okay. And so as a result of these fears, we can adapt to what is available instead of yearning for what is no longer available. And so if you do not allow yourself to feel your fear, the vibration that it creates is always going to be calling in the exact experience that you are fearing. And this may seem like a cruelty of the law of attraction, but it's actually a tremendous gift. Okay? As you continue to call in experiences that stimulate your fear, you are being granted over and over and over again opportunities to face that fear and discover your own bravery. You are given opportunities to release your projections and your expectations long enough to actually soften and allow for what is truly needed. And that is your spirit to grow. Your spirit needs to know how strong it is in order to grow. It needs to be reminded. Your source energy already knows how strong it is. You've only forgotten, and you've convinced yourself that you're not, right? Let's talk about grief, our fourth one. So grief is an acknowledgement of our powerlessness to undo what has happened. By reflecting on what is not possible, we shift our ability to discern what is possible. And this allows us to release past hopes and eventually find new hopes. So instead of, I wish my partner were here to love me, our need becomes, I hope to find love. And this motivates us to start over. It also allows us to carve new pathways in our brains that are addictively attached to figures that could never provide what we need in our physical reality anymore for whatever reason. Okay. Now, I will add here that it is essential to utilize body activation to allow your grief feelings to be processed and transformed. So complicated grief, especially, is deeply entrenched in the neural pathways of your brain that are related to addiction and to attachment mechanisms. So without body-based interventions, you will talk yourself in circles around your feelings of grief, gain tremendous insight, most likely, maybe even find meaning in them, but you will always struggle to feel any differently. And that is why I believe a mindfulness-based approach with creative arts therapies is hugely effective, particularly in a psychospiritual context. Okay. And if we are to apply a metaphor to this, if we're driving in one direction and we decide to stop and turn in a new direction, you have to put the brakes on, right? And so allowing yourself to feel these four emotions is akin to putting the brakes on. Now, oftentimes we allow our mind to wrap itself around relationship dynamics, and we analyze and we pick apart every little piece of what happened, but we don't allow the body to experience the emotions that were actually tied up in it. Now, you could be listening to this and you're thinking, of course, I feel miserable. Yes, I'm having all these feelings right now. But what you're actually experiencing is a resistance to the emotions. You are fighting them, and you are looking for ways to somehow fix them so you can win that fight, right? I don't have to feel this. I want you to stop looking for those fix-it solutions and slow down and let go of the oars and just turn your boat downstream again. You may have to go through a few rapids, but you are headed downstream to where you don't have to fight this fight anymore. Okay? You're headed into the delta where it's going to be still waters and beautiful sandy beaches. Okay? Now, this is not necessarily me giving you permission to wallow in sadness, fear, anger, and grief. This is, however, giving you permission to let yourself actually feel them, right? And approach it from within a framework that we discussed earlier, which is to experience them from a place of conscious choice and within the context of the intentions that you set for yourself. And so once you stop being able to see, yearn for, and attend to only one thing, whatever that is, meaning being, I want my partner back, I don't want to feel this anymore, I want someone new to fill this hole inside of me. Once you stop, allow yourself to let go of that one aching need, yearning, desire to somehow fix it, and I don't want to sit with this. Once you can allow yourself to sit with something uncomfortable, guess what? That one thing, it goes away, and all things show up, right? All things show up. But you have to be willing to allow for that. You are never in the wrong place. You are never in the wrong time. You are only ever in the right place. But you may be struggling to find the most easeful perspective, the most compassionate perspective towards yourself. Okay? And that's a note on which I'd like to leave you with. And I'd love for you to tell me in the comments below what feeling you may be stuck in. If it's anger, fear, grief, or sadness. And also, if you're willing, whatever questions were raised for you in listening to this video, and what might you consider you need to engage with in order to release these feelings. I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Additionally, in upcoming posts, I'm going to talk a lot more about how to allow yourself to feel these feelings using creative and mindfulness-based approaches. So stay tuned for the live streams. And lastly, as a reminder, we are going to be doing a 5 days to ignite your love light challenge at the end of March. And so in this challenge, you're going to learn how to take fear out of your desire, how to identify and release 2 important types of limiting beliefs about yourself, how to use mindfulness and creativity to practice being in a loving vibration, and how to show up for an ascended love partner, not a soulmate or a twin flame, but an ascended love partner. And so this challenge is going to include 5 daily live streams and lessons, 5 daily emails, including a synopsis and assignment, access to a recap page for any days that you might have missed, exclusive access to live Q&A on day 5, and a guided soul journey with the lovely shamanatrix Kristen Boyer on day 5. You're also going to have access to this group, of course, if you're not already in it, and a special bonus offer on day 5 for continuing the work if you decide you've enjoyed the challenge. So if you're ready for a soul-shaking, passionate partnership from a place of energetic alignment and self-love, you should join our challenge. I'm going to put a sign up in the caption here. And I hope to see you again. I'm going to do another live stream on Thursday. I look forward to hearing from you and seeing the comments below. I would love to touch upon those on Thursday's live stream as well. Thank you for watching.